background that you have. Okay, are you ready?
เดี๋ยวแป๊บหนึ่งค่ะเดี๋ยวขออีกประมาณสักรันประมาณสัก10 วินาทีโอเคค่ะ
You can start.
Okay.
I need to go now.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to lecture series of Global Development Agenda and Thailand Challenges series. My name is Yasushi Negishi, lecturer of Puey Ungphakorn School of Development Studies, Thammasat University. Under this lecture series, I am going to talk about Global Development Agenda and Thailand Challenges with 5 presentations. Let me share with you my presentation. Okay. Okay. These are the 5 presentations that I am going to deliver during the lecture series. The reason I picked up these presentations topics that I think these are the key development agenda issues for the current among the international community. And I prepared this presentation for those who are interested in learning on global development agenda at the introductory level. So I hope this presentation will be helpful for learners to understand the key issues. And today I am going to talk on the overall trend of global development issues during the past 7 decades, so that listeners can understand the issues from the long-term perspectives. The title of today's presentation is Evolution of the Development Concept in the Post-World War II period, covering year 1945 up to 2020s. And as for today's presentation, there are 3 sections. We start with the 2 aspects of development, namely social development and economic development. Then we will learn about historic context and evolution of major development concepts during the past 7 decades. I will also mention the issues with which Thailand was involved throughout the period. Finally, we will see ongoing 3 major development agenda: poverty reduction, inequality, and sustainability. Section 1, overview of social and economic development. Let us start with the definition of development. According to a dictionary, development means the progress in which someone and something grow, changes, and becomes more advanced. And there are 2 aspects in the country's development, which are social and economic development. Historically speaking, international community focused on economic side of development just aftermath of the World War II, while since 1950s and 60s, people gradually started paying attention to social aspect of development as well. Then, what is economic development? Economic development involves the improvement of nations' economic indicators, such as gross domestic product, income levels, employment opportunities, and industrialization. It aims to improve the overall standard of living. And then what is social development? Social development refers to the improvement of quality of life and social condition of a population. It includes factors like education, healthcare, housing, social services, and social equity. In this slide, I listed 8 typical statistics which cover the country's development. First 3 are the numbers to assess economic development, and the last 5 are for social development. Let me explain one by one. First, GDP, gross domestic product, is a monetary value of all final goods and services made within a country during a specific period. Thailand GDP grew from 341 billion in year 2010 to $500 billion in year 2020. So Thailand's GDP increased by 1.5 times during this 10-year period. Next, GDP per capita is calculated by dividing GDP by a nation by its population. Thailand's GDP per capita increased from $4,996 in 2010 to $7,000 US in 2020. Again, the number increased by 1.4 times. The third, unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is a number of people who are unemployed as a percentage of total labor force. Thailand's unemployment rate, 0.6% in 2010, increased to 1.1% in 2020. These numbers are relatively low compared with other countries' unemployment rates. And we understand this unemployment increased in year 2020 since we have the COVID-19 pandemic in that year. Fourth is the primary school gross enrollment ratio, which is a ratio of total enrollment in primary schools to the population of the age group. So this number in Thailand increased from 96.9% in 2010 to 100% in 2019. So this means by 2019, all the age group population enrolled, registered in the primary school in Thailand. I think this is a pretty good number. Number 5 is population with access to safe water. This may be not necessarily explain the definition, but this means that population uses safely managed treated water source. The Thailand number, this is increased 97% in 2010 to 99.8% in 2019. So again, Thailand's number for access to safe water is quite good. Number 6 is infant mortality rate. This is the number calculated as the number of deaths in the first year of life divided by the number of live births multiplied by 1,000. So according to these statistics, Thailand's number, 11.7 babies in 2010, decreased to 7.7 babies in 2019. Again, Thailand has made a great progress to decrease the number of babies die before they reach year 1. Number 7 is prevalence of underweight, weight for age, a percent below standard a 5-year-old. This is a number indicate those underweight children who are below the standard. And in this case, there are 9.2% underweight children in year 2012, which decreased 6.7% in year 2016. The last number, life expectancy at birth. I think most of the people know this is the average year that newborn baby can expect to live. Life expectancy of Thailand increased from 74 years old in 2010 to 76 years old in 2018. So again, in this number, Thailand has been making good progress to lengthen the life expectancies during the past decades. So these are the statistics by which we can assess both economic development and social development. So let me go to the second section. Which is a historical context and evolution of development. Yeah, let's start with the early decades of the history. Yeah, let's start with 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s. In 1945, World War II ended, and many Asian and African countries became independent in this period. After superpowers such as UK, France, Germany, Soviet Union, US, and Japan withdrew from those countries. For example, India and Pakistan became independent from UK in 1947. Indonesia became independent from Dutch in 1949. Vietnam became independent from France in 1954. And various African countries are independent from European colonial powers in 1950s and 60s. And also several countries in the Middle East, such as Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, independent, became independent from France and the UK in those days. And that's the situation for the developing countries. And then we have another war started in year 1947, which is a Cold War. Yeah, this blue arrows indicate the period that the Cold War stayed in international community. This is a geopolitical tension between United States versus Soviet Union. And the world was divided into those countries try to promote capitalism, which is called Western Bloc. And while those countries try to promote socialism, it's called Eastern Bloc, socialist countries. And we have seen the actual wars like Korean wars and Vietnam wars, which are the typical wars fought during this period. So that's the another international situation which happened during early part of this table. And let me also add, in year 1955, first Asian and African conference held in Bandung, Indonesia, at which 29 countries participated. And this is a new movement that developing countries try to get together and try to form our opinions, try to declare our opinions in the international communities. Especially, they are trying to insist that those countries needed to be independent and free from any country's colonialism activities. So that's the third factor which happened in this period. And in 1960s, thanks to the peace which were brought up during just after the World War II, many developing countries were able to achieve high economic growth after they reconstruct those devastated infrastructure affected by the World War II. And this period in 1960s, we call this period glorious 1960s, where developed countries were able to enjoy a stable high growth period. And let me explain the two theories which become very popular in those 3 decades. First one is modernization theory. As I mentioned, that during 1950s and 70s, developed countries used modern mass production, and they imported raw materials such as oil, iron ore, cotton from developed countries, and production of developed countries contributed 78% of the world GDP in 1960s. So developed economies dominate the world economy. And under this background, the theory called modernization theory aimed to explain how society progressed over time. And this theory suggested that the society's transition from traditional to modern stages as they adopt modern values, technology, and institutions. And according to modernization theory, industrialization, urbanization, and increased education would promote societies forward, and resulting in improved living standards and quality of life. And there are famous, there is a famous economist, Walt Whitman Rostov, who wrote this book, The Stage of Economic Growth, Non-Communist Manifesto. This is a diagram which indicate his 5-stage approach. Started with the traditional society, agriculture-based economy. Start with the stage. Next stage is a preconditions for takeoff. During this period, agriculture sector commercialized, and also they have mining industries which create national wealth. And with these wealth, they can start developing a manufacturing sector. And in the 4th stage, they try to diversify, develop the wider industrial and commercial base. And at the 4th stage, high mass consumption stage, where they can highly develop both industrial and commercial bases, and could take a very competitive position in the global market. So modernization theory suggested developing countries to take this path so that they can compete in the global stage. The second theory which came out during this decade was dependency theory. As a reaction to modernization theory, dependency theory emerged as a critique during 1960s and 70s. And this theory challenges the assumption of equal development opportunities and highlighted the unequal power dynamics between developed and developing nations. And dependency theory argued that the global economic system allows the continuation of underdevelopment in the developing countries by exploiting these nations for their resources and cheap labors. This theory shed light on the need for fair trade, economic justice, and more balanced international relations. So while modernization theory suggested the developing countries to take the same path, dependency theory argued that unless we can have a new approach, more fair approach, it would not be easy for developing countries to take the same path suggested by the modernization theory. So those are the two theories that which came out during 1940s up to 1960s decades. Okay, let's move on to 1970s. Yeah, in 1970s, both developed and developing countries without oil reserves were affected by the two oil shocks. These oil shocks happened due to geopolitical tension in the Middle East. And developing countries without oil reserves had to spend more money to import oil and suffered from inflation. And thanks to the increased oil price, oil exporting countries such as Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Venezuela, and a great deal of oil export earnings. And they deposit the surplus at the international banks such as US commercial banks. And for instance, during the first oil shock, oil price increased from $2.90 a barrel before the shock to $11.65 in January 1947. So the oil price increased almost 4 times. Assume in Thailand that if the current gasoline price increased, current 35 baht per liter to 140 baht per liter, I think it would damage our household budget and also whole economy. And when we had the second oil shock, the oil price increased from then $13 per barrel to $34 per barrel by year 1980s. So that time, oil price further increased about 2.6 times. So please also imagine that this increased gasoline price, 140 40 baht per liter, further increased up to 360 bahts. Then it will be a very chaotic to national economy and also individual households economy. So that's what happened during 1970s. And then this money earned by oil exporting countries channeled to those developing countries in Latin America and other countries. Yeah, some money also went to the developing countries in Africa. But the problem in the Latin American countries are very serious because they borrowed a lot. And those countries, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, and Chile, they borrowed too much, and they also failed to manage inflation. And they faced this foreign exchange currency crisis. And those governments were not able to repay debt borrowed from international banks, especially from US commercial banks. And then they have to go to International Monetary Fund and the World Bank to receive money. And then in 1990s, Asian countries went through very high economic growth during 1980s. In Asia, most of the government took a very conservative approach in terms of the borrowing. So government side was okay. But since those Asian countries enjoyed high economic growth, private sector borrowed too much under the fixed exchange rate regime. And by the late 1990s, many Asian countries such as Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Korea, they faced this so-called balance of payment crisis, and many private sector companies and also banks faced this financial issues. And in 1997, Thailand needed to float its currency. Before it was 25 baht per dollar, but after the crisis, or during the crisis, Bank of Thailand have to float the currency. Let the market to decide the Thai baht currency. And Thai baht becomes suddenly get cheap, like 45 baht per US dollar, and which would make both Thai commercial banks and private sector face difficulty making a repayment to the foreign currency borrowing. So that's what happened to the Asian countries in 1990s. And let me explain the two major concepts which prevailed during 1980s and 1990s. First approach is so-called structural adjustment programs. In 1980s and 90s, developing countries faced the debt crisis, and they have to go to IMF and the World Bank to borrow those needed money